Look, there's some great thoughts coming through here, and I think we talked about 2030 and where might procurement be. It'd be good if it was unrecognisable,
yes,
in a way, because really what you want I'll just talk about my bailiwick, but in a business setting, what you want are people creating value, and at the end of the day, it's as simple as that. And so, if you go to 2030, though, we're going to be using less our hands, and it's going to be more about heads and hearts. And you know, if people want to really get on board and be a critical part of that success and that future, they're going to have to find ways to lead people and get extraordinary outcomes from people doing extraordinary things. And you can only do that if you've got the ideas coming through that are they're agnostic about where it came from.
yes,
It's about how can I help make it successful. And we have a situation, just as a practical matter, we'll have an investment review process that'll be on a telepresence, and I won't know what department these people are. I might not have ever met them before.
yes,
But we'll have 6 screens filled with faces, and each of these people make a contribution. Could I care less if they were procurement or accounting or engineering or manufacturing? It doesn't matter. It's the value of the idea and how they're going to get it actually in place and delivered.
thank you. A wonderful array of thoughts. You must be itching to jump in. David, what are your thoughts on this?
So I was trying to get sorry, what was your name?
Olinga?
The inspirational speaker in the
Yes,
middle.
Giles. Yes,
Giles, sorry,
Giles,
I do
yes,
apologise.
yes.
How did this happen?
I was also,
Go for it. Go
and
on.
I thought it was great, but it's actually destroyed my presentation this afternoon totally because you've covered everything.
That was the entire aim of it.
However, but I just want to reflect on what you've said, and it's and again I'll come to this afternoon. But the spotlight we're in is very strongly on that side, on the social side, and I've seen this firsthand, the work I've done at the Institute over the last few years, that we are so much in the social spotlight, whether we like it or not. And it's not just in the obvious industries like retail and Tesco's, which have got huge impacts on them. But in other industries, you wouldn't believe that will get caught out. So there's a huge, I think we have to be cognizant of, there's a huge brand that we are seen as the ambassadors in our businesses for their relationships down the chain.
And it's much bigger than CSR, isn't it?
It's a huge responsibility, I think, people are waking up to.
May I
Yes, please,
respond?
Olinga, jump in.
Absolutely, and the point that my colleague here made, and you reiterated, it does come about measuring. Look, we know what the currency of financial value is. That's the dollar, right? So the question is, what is the currency of all these other values? All right, because if you can't measure it, you can't bill it. That's business. So if the poor sod procurement guy is sitting there having to add up 8 numbers and divide by 3 and then give a contract to someone, if the procurement guy doesn't know how to measure it fast, speedily, it's not going to happen. And the transformation that's happened actually goes back to what Sarah said at the back there, and that is about sentiment. She called surveys, etc. The three things that have changed impact measurement in the world is big data, is social media, and sentiment analysis. So, I guess why I'm on the panel here, because I developed a system called social earnings ratio, which is the fastest adopted metric in the world. We delivered a speech to the Pope last year in the Vatican, etc., etc. And we do it in 10 seconds and for £5, right? Because if you're looking at procurement in any corporation, any government, for example, a local authority in this country has around Birmingham 34,000 suppliers. Tesco will have upwards of 35,000, a housing association 18,000. You can't do traditional ways of going, do you love trees, do you love animals, do you love multicolored children, all that stuff, okay? You gotta do it rapidly, and so to do it in 10 seconds was a disruptive thing, so it's all about measurement. And we articulate sentiment as a financial value.
Yes.
Because in the end, the financial value is what you are going to be measured on.
Let me just follow that thought up just in 2 ways. And I put the conundrum out in front of you. I think one of the difficulty that procurement organizations often have is that very often a lot of you are reporting into the financial organization. And that in and of itself might be limiting. And you have to think about that what is the function of the CFO? And very often it's not trying to figure out what social value is. So that reporting line actually may prevent you from doing some things, particularly when we talk about these very important social effects. And the second thing is that we really ought to think about is that how do you move out of that? So not necessarily how do you move out of finance, but how do you enlarge that scope of what you're actually trying to do? And a lot of it, and I think a good portion of it, is around capability. And our belief is that capability precedes mandate. So you actually have to build capability that goes in front of the ability to actually have the mandate from the company. So when you're talking about things like the social impact, think about building the capability in the organization that actually can deliver it before you get a mandate.
Is there a particular capability that is on your mind when you make that statement?
There's a lot. I would leave it up to the others to think about that, because I think it's probably different depending on industry. I think and business. There are a few. I think one of the key ones, the way we see it, is the ability to, I don't want to say talk above your function, but talk across the functions. You've got to be talking the business that your business internal client is expecting you to speak, not your own. And by the way, I think that's one of the big issues with category management. We as procurement people talk category management.
Yes.
Let me tell you, it kills you outside of the procurement function. Stop talking category management and talk about what you can actually do for the business. So I think it's part of it is being able to talk outside of your function.
We're sort of reinventing accounting, I guess. We're counting different things for different purposes. In a way, the church once protected capitalism from itself. If religion collapses, something has to take its place, doesn't it? And it's for business to step up to the plate and recognize that going to work is more than just making a living now, it's making a life.
Absolutely right.
Jace?
Sure. A few additional thoughts. It is making a living, and I think increasingly some of the smarter finance minds are beginning to realize it. I've worked in private equity over the years as an advisor. I've had friends in different areas go into it. And most recently, what's been curious about it is organizations beginning to bring in CPOs for the portfolio companies. So literally an operating partner who's not looking at doing deals, but literally increasing the value of the portfolio through procurement. And it's become standard in North America. If you take, the 10, 12 biggest private equity funds, most have got an operating partner overseeing the different portfolio companies, actually doing procurement operations and bringing folks in doing category management. But I think more broadly as well, putting on the finance mindset, it's not just EBITDA and OIBDA or whichever way you want to measure, but it's the impact on the business. And if you look at, what Goldman Sachs did by getting into the warehousing business a number of years ago and looking at the physical supply chain, if you look at Glencore and Xstrata as an example as well, simply being in the arbitrage business instead of owning physical assets, or the opposite, being in the arbitrage business and then beginning to get into the physical side of it, as operators within private equity are seeing, it's really where the two sides collide. And if you understand the finance piece and you understand the operations piece, there's huge potential.
Elegantly put. Another thought, another starter for the next stage of this debate. Yes.
I think there's a topic about 2030. We've heard what will be. I think when we go 2030, which is 15 years out, it's what could be. And I haven't heard anything from all of you on what could be. Maybe we spoke when we introduced each other, Tim, and maybe you could put your views on what could be for procurement.
Yes, I actually wrote a piece which is on the Procurious website where I talked about the various types of industrial revolutions. And one of the things that people have been talking about a lot is around sensors and the Apple Watch and using those within and how they will work within the enterprise. Then I sort of took that one step further and said, okay, what could even, because 2030 is quite a long way away, so what could even be the next step? And I talked about how artificial intelligence could actually become more prevalent within the working life, not just robots, but things that are thinking and interacting with us. So I actually went through those different steps of the Industrial Revolution. So that's kind of where I saw 2030, yeah.
What will be the scarce resource in 2030, do you think?
Well, it's I don't think you can still really teach a robot some of the we think based on our nature and our nurture, and I don't think that you can necessarily teach a robot that. So I lived through the implementation of robots in the 70s and the 80s. I remember when they were introduced, say, in British Leyland.
Yeah.
And so we've still got jobs and we're still working, but I think it's going to be more about the mind and about how you apply that, and no different from when we implemented and changed the way that financial services worked.
Interesting. Who wants to pick this up? Lance, you've got something to say.
Just a few small bits. I mean, first of all, it's 15 years away. I think things will move incredibly between now and then. The thing that has sort of shocked me, I was at a conference about 10 days ago, was sustainability one, and a similar question was asked, and somebody answered the question, well, hold on, today at the minute we've got more people with mobile phones than they have access to water, and those same people that are using mobile phones are using them to solve problems. So you've got a farmer on the side of a hill somewhere, basically got a problem with landslides, and he's basically connecting with somebody on the side of a hill in Peru or from Bolivia, basically solving that problem. And I think, if you build that into what happens in 2030, is it's breaking it down to really, really simple problems. I think technology, I think people, I think sustainability will mean that people will be able to connect in an instant to get answers to the questions that they want, to be able to move things forward. We won't have or shouldn't have so many formal structures, because technology will support that. And then also the social agenda will have fundamentally changed as well, hopefully in 15 years.
Will the organisational unit typically get smaller, do you think?
I think it'll be. I don't necessarily think it'll become smaller in terms of the business size, but you'll get it. It'll be broken down more, so you won't have as many barriers. You'll have more empowerment of people, because the processes and technology which we're putting in place basically mean that people can just do stuff, and they understand the boundaries and they understand the control points that exist as well. I think unfortunately you're going to have some people that embrace 2030, and then you're still going to have the same people doing the same things they do now in 2030 as well.
So a more polarised world, possibly.
Yeah, I think so. I think
I
so.
think